What's going on, guys? Andrew back at it again with another video. Not today. Oh, what was that? Well, in all seriousness, guys, what's up? I feel kind of bad since I didn't post anything last week in terms of video content or anything, and in the next week I have something planned. I'll tell you that later. But mainly last week I spent all my time building the shelf that you see behind me. And I figured since I didn't post anything last week, I'd make a quick video today showing you how to build something like this. I've always had shelves that, you know, kind of just sit on the ground like a typical shelf, but those are really cheap shelves that are by a brand called Mainstays. I think that's what it's called, Mainstay. It's basically like the Walmart brand shelf that costs like 30 bucks. I mean, it's a good shelf, it gets you by, but over time it'll bow, it'll start to wear, and it's an alright shelf, but I'd rather build something and have the integrity of the shelf last a lot longer than one of those Walmart shelves. Now, the idea for the shelf came along when I was walking around my dad's garage, and I saw like a 2-foot shelf that was built pretty much the same way this was, and it was just holding up some miscellaneous car parts, and I was like, I figured that I could build something like that because I'm so used to the shelf that is on the floor, like just like a typical shelf that you can buy from like Walmart or whatever. But they're really cheap shelves. Those are the ones that I was using for the longest times, and you can see those in my previous videos. One of them actually broke when I was trying to scoot it along the floor, and I was like, oh, because it's made of particle board or like a really fine compacted wood dust. And I mean, it's a really cheap way of making shelves, and I mean, if you're not gonna push it or move it for a long time, just let it be, then it's an alright shelf for 25, 30 bucks. But if you move stuff a lot and you really like to see new things and change like I do, then you know, just be careful when you're moving it because you could break it. Now, when the weekend was over and I actually got this thing put up, I was actually really happy with how it turned out because it complements my desk and my wall quite nicely, and actually looks like this area is the centerpiece of my room, and everything just complements each other really nicely. And one of these days I'll give you a room tour if you guys actually want something like that. But I guess it's just me when it came to this shelf. You can't notice it right now probably, but there was a couple corners that were cut when it came to the painting portion, just because I guess it was just me being stubborn and wanting to get it up quickly so I can post a video for you guys and just put all my stuff on it, I guess. Now, the parts for this shelf actually weren't that expensive. The wood, give or take, was about $80, $85, and it also depends on the type of wood that you buy. And another thing to note about the wood, you have the option to buy it primed or non-primed. And I chose to buy it primed because I knew I was gonna paint it a specific color. I chose black because my desk is an espresso color, but it also looks very black. So I figured, why not just paint it black? Nobody's gonna notice anything, especially not me. And you have the option to buy it non-primed, which is just like a natural kind of wood finish. And since I knew I was gonna go paint it, I didn't bother to buy a non-finished wood. And the hooks holding up the wood were about 86 cents a piece, and I had to buy 18 of them, 3 per shelf. And I had to buy the metal bars used to hold up and support the shelves. And those, I had to buy 6 of those, and those were about $7 a piece. So if you do the math, it was about, give or take, about $120 for this shelf, which is not a bad deal, considering that I bought a shelf before from Best Buy that was supposed to hold up CDs, and again, it was made from particle board and it broke, or just the assembly instructions are just so convoluted and it's confounding, and you can't put it together, or something doesn't go in right, nothing lines up right because it's made in the factory, and they're supposed to be matching according to the paperwork or the directions. They're supposed to be lined up, but when you get it home and you start putting it together, it just nothing lines up. So if you want something that's actually gonna last and have integrity, build it yourself. Now, the supplies for this project that I used a 150 grit sheet of sandpaper to get rid of the imperfections in the wood later. A paint stirrer, a rectangular paint pad, and a tool to hold the paint pad, obviously. And the paint that I chose was I forget the brand because it's all covered up right now, but just go to the store and look for a semi-gloss paint. Now, the reason you would probably choose semi-gloss, they usually have a display in there to tell you like the difference between like a heavy gloss, semi-gloss, and like no gloss at all. But the reason I chose a semi-gloss was because it has a little bit of a reflection to kind of maybe, you know, catch your eye a little bit more, and it also doesn't scratch easy. Now, if you chose like a high gloss, you risk it scratching later. If you pick up games and move stuff on and off your shelf often, you can risk scratching it later. So if you don't want to scratch it, choose a semi-gloss. Now, if you like what you see behind me, I'm going to tell you how to build this shelf really quickly. I'm not going to go through a whole tutorial video that would take about maybe 20 minutes like you see on YouTube, but this shelf is so simple that I think anybody could build it. And if you're a kid wanting to make a shelf like this, ask your parents to help you and maybe show them this video, and they can kind of get a general idea of what I did or what I'm trying to explain to you. But when it came to actually building the shelf, it took me about 2 days of painting and actually cutting. Now, step one is going to be wood selection. When you go to Home Depot, you have the option to choose some of the exotic woods, like maybe rosewood, mahogany, and pine, and all these types of woods, or particle board if you choose to do something like this, but I highly don't. I chose pine because it's a nice smooth wood, and like I said before, you have the option to choose primed or non-primed, and me, like I said before, I was painting in a solid color of black, so I chose a primed wood as opposed to a non-finished wood. You might want to choose something different. The shelf is completely up to you. Now, going back into step one a little bit, when it came to selecting the metal rods that are actually supporting up the wood, I made sure to buy single track. Now, I don't really know exactly what they're called, but all you got to do is go into Home Depot and go to the shelving department, and they'll have these single track bars. And they'll also have the hooks. I forget exactly what they're called too, but they're basically like right below or right above where you would find these metal rods. And they basically have like 2 prongs in it, and they're going to be used to hook in to the shelf. You don't want to get the double track, because you're not going to be putting 2 hooks side by side. You only need 1. Now, going back into step 2, the cool thing about these shelves is that they're fully adjustable. If you want to take, if you choose to change your mind later, you can adjust it and make the shelf higher or lower or whatever you want. But when it came to actually cutting the length of the rod that I needed, I made sure to measure from the tallest object that would be going on the top shelf, and I knew that object was 14 inches. So instead of measuring from the ceiling down to where you want them to stop, I measured from the ceiling down minus 14 inches. So basically I would go to the ceiling, go 14 inches down, and then go to the top of my monitors, which is what I chose to do. So the actual length of each rod is a little over a yard. Now, step 3 is going to be wood prepping and painting. Since I chose a primed wood from the store that's about the same price, like literally within cents of each other, since I chose a primed wood as opposed to a non-finished wood, all I had to do was literally start painting and sand it a little bit before you start painting. But if you chose to go the natural wood route and apply like maybe a stain like a red or a cherry or just like a black overcoat to actually see the wood grain, you know, that's completely up to you. But since I chose a primed wood, the thing I had to go into next was maybe sanding it just a little bit to get rid of any minor imperfections that might have been in it, like maybe bumps or pits or whatever. And if there are pits in your wood, make sure to take some wood filler, which I didn't have to, because at the store, when you're selecting your wood, there's a lot of pieces there, so make sure you go through it. You can go through it and select the pieces that have the least amount of imperfections. Now, after you took your sandpaper or your wood filler, if you needed it to get rid of all the imperfections in your shelves, what you're gonna wanna do is take your rectangular paint pad and paint one side of all your shelves. And then depending on the wait time of your paint that you chose, flip it over and do the same thing. Now, one thing to note about painting, when you're painting, don't overfill your brush. I'm pretty sure you already know that. Don't overfill your paintbrush, your paint pad or whatever. Make sure you fill it up just a little bit, not too much, because if you actually start painting, you might notice that it might look all right on that side, but if you look on the other side, on the edges, you might see some paint spill or some paint drips, and it might actually get on your surface that you're painting on. So make sure when you're painting, don't overfill your brush, take it slow, and you won't get the imperfections that are on mine. Now, after you're done painting that one side, I would highly recommend waiting maybe till the next morning or the next day to actually start painting the other side, because I know a lot of paints say maybe wait 2 to 4 hours, which is what mine said, but it could still be a little tacky, and what you don't want to do is if you lay it down on the surface and you wait till the next day and you laid it down after 2 to 4 hours and then you pick it up and then it's all blotchy and it just doesn't look right. So just to take the necessary measures to not have imperfections in your wood paint, just wait a couple hours more than what it tells you, or just wait till the next day. Now, tomorrow rolls around, so next step I did was I flipped it over, did the other side, and I also, depending on how you lay yours out, I just leaned mine up against a wall. You might want to use this time to flip over your wood that you already painted and get rid of some minor imperfections or some minor places that didn't get painted before. And it's as simple as that. And after that, literally comes mounting. Now when mounting these rods, make sure if you can, try to find a stud. If you have a stud finder, if your parents have a stud finder, try to put the rods in studs behind your wall. This will increase support and will likely decrease the chances of it breaking. Now when putting the shelves on your wall, the actual brackets, take your time. Use your level properly. You know, make sure all your bubbles are level. Check and recheck. Check on yourself, you know. That's all I can really recommend is if you want them to look right and line up perfectly, make sure your bubbles are level. Now if you're an adult watching this video, I'm pretty sure you should have no problem doing this. It's just all about making sure you have the right tools necessary to do the job and just checking and rechecking on yourself. Now if you're a kid, make sure you get your parents to help you with this because nothing would tick you off more than putting all your rods up and then trying to put your shelves on, nothing just lines up and it just ends up being a mess. Make sure you get your parents to help you if you don't know what you're doing. Or reach out to somebody that knows what they're doing to help you out. Now that's going to be it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to drop a like on this video if you like what you saw. Now this video wasn't intended to be like a really in-depth how-to guide because I mean this shelf really isn't that hard to make to begin with. I was just trying to intrigue your guys' interest on maybe potentially building something like this. Now if you are going to build something like this, make sure you watch this video over and over again. Don't get confused. And if I wasn't that informative or if I didn't cover a step that you might have needed or you might have wanted to learn more about, go on Google. I mean, everything's on Google nowadays. Now in terms of upcoming content, I know Super Mario Odyssey is just right around the corner. It's about 2 weeks away as I'm recording this video. And what I plan on doing is doing a live stream of Super Mario Galaxy 2. And I hope to get all 120 stars in the time when the game actually comes out. But you know, we'll see what happens. I'm gonna start streaming this right away, so stay tuned for that. Now guys, that's it for this video. I'll see you again soon.